there. A warm welcome to the program. I'm Olayemi Odunuga, and this is Tech Trends. This week, we visit the mobile classroom, an application that's aiming to bridge the learning gap for both secondary and tertiary students. Also on the program, I'll be talking to Samuel Ubido, chairman of Tech Innovate Group, on tackling the menace of fintech fraud in Nigeria. Stay with us as we take you on a ride for the next 25 minutes to seek out innovation and creativity that are unique to Africa.
With Bitcoin, every transaction is publicly verified, so many risks are eliminated, including chargeback fraud or friendly fraud. This is when a customer purchases something online with a credit card, waits to receive the goods or service, then requests a chargeback refund. The bank then forcibly takes the funds out of the merchant's account.
There's no doubt about the improvements tech has brought to the education sector, from personalized learning systems to interactive online platforms that enhance the learning experiences of students. The mobile classroom is one of such apps that's aiming to bridge the learning gap for both secondary and tertiary students in Nigeria, while ensuring the preservation of the intellectual property of educators on the platform.
In today's world, learning is changing with tech, making it as dynamic as the students it serves. That's where the mobile classroom app comes in, a platform that puts on-the-go learning right at the fingertips of Nigerian students. According to the founder, Akeem Salami, the app was born out of a desire to bridge learning gaps using technology.
It's actually an e-learning platform that was actually put in place like almost 4 or 5 years ago. So then it was actually for secondary school students, where we put up like almost 1,000 video content for secondary school. But in the recent time, we extended the opportunities to tertiary institutions, the lecturers in higher institutions, coaches and facilitators anywhere.
Built by a team passionate about learning, this app brings the classroom straight into the pockets of both students and lecturers.
We have different lecturers that are lecturers on the platform.
Creating a space where students can engage with their studies anytime while also supporting educators to share their knowledge beyond their schools.
There are two major things we have considered. Number one is that we look at how lecturers are being empowered. How can they take advantage of technology to advance their well-being? So we feel if lecturers can have a space of their own to preserve their intellectual asset, it means that students of other schools who do not have the privilege to attend Unilag will have the opportunity to take lecture from a lecturer in Unilag for as long as the lecturer can take him better. So we are trying to bring inter-institutional expectations of intellectual material, that you can be a student of Biapatech, mass communications, and be taking lecture from a student of Unilearning, lecturer of Unilearning. So this is what we have thought of to put this. And secondly, we also understand that with the way things are going in the world, flexibility is a key thing that we have to consider. Many students have to work and learn. And how do they combine this if there is a scheduled time for them to take the lecture? So if lecturers have put up their lecture video on their lecture space, students at their own convenient time can have access to this content. So in this case, we feel them having access to their lecturers, their content, their lecture material, video, audio based at their own convenient time will enhance learning.
Unique features of the app like My Class and virtual tests that aim to make the learning and teaching process easier. Here, educators can create personalized classes and upload lecture materials, and students can revisit these lessons at their own pace.
My Class is just a replica of a Spotify that is available for musicians. But My Class is for lecturers to upload their intellectual materials recorded so that their students can have the opportunity to reassess their lecture at their own convenient time. It's a kind of empowerment for lecturers too, while also making learning easy for people. While the virtual test is just to test people, just like the lecturers in our institutions want to conduct the assessment test. And they have to go through the rigors of writing tests on paper, marking and recording. Now they can conduct their assessment tests virtually.
While the platform is more than just a tool, but an opportunity for both lecturers and students to stay on track with their academic goals, building it to this point was not without challenges.
From the inception, we've encountered quite a number of challenges, even at the launch of mobile classroom, at the introduction of mobile classroom. So our content was actually locally oriented. We approached even government agencies then, so because it was a new thing, so it was not really getting their attention, not until COVID-19 happened to the entire world. So when Nigerian government also see the need for them to take care of Nigerian students. So it was just COVID-19. So that's one of the challenges: acceptability, endorsement, even the government agencies. So when the government cannot key into it immediately, you can see a lot of effort we'll be making to convince. Just look at this opportunity of my class for lecturer. Just look at it from the angle of the student. The virtual test we conducted recently for tertiary intro students in Nigeria, the lecturers put up material there that studied this topic, and I will ask a question anywhere, and we do this. But when the students were coming back with a lot of testimonies, some of them said they were in their bus shop when they were taking the lectures. Some of them said they didn't have the time in the middle of the night. They have to go back to the materials again and take. So look at the opportunity from the angle of the student. Now look at it from the angle of the lecturers that will be able to preserve their material. Unlike when they publish their textbook, when the textbook is sold and exhausted, that's the end. But you now have a space where you can keep this material forever and never.
For students, the mobile classroom app means access to hundreds of lessons on any device, anytime they want, and for lectures. It's a chance to extend their reach beyond traditional institutions, which is a win-win for both sides. Did you know that Samsung started off as a grocery store and a noodle shop? It's difficult to imagine Samsung as anything other than a top electronics giant, but before it became the multinational powerhouse it is today, it had quite a varied history. Founded by Lee Byung-chul in 1938, Samsung originally started as a trading company focused on exporting a range of goods including dried fish, flour, and vegetables. They even manufactured their own noodles for export. Over the years, Samsung ventured into a wide range of industries, from sugar refining and textiles to running retail operations. It wasn't until 1969 that the company entered the electronics market, starting with home appliances like televisions, refrigerators, and air conditioners. This move laid the foundation for the development of mobile devices and smartphones, shaping the Samsung electronics we recognize today. How much do you really know about the tech world? Put your knowledge to the test with these trivia questions. What computer security company, founded by namesake John in 1987 before being acquired by Intel in 2011, is well known for its antivirus software that is available to individual customers? Options: McAfee, Malwarebytes, McNow, Norton. And the answer is McAfee. In a bid to challenge Microsoft's dominance of enterprise laptops, Google announced a partnership with what longtime Microsoft partner in 2019 focused on the Latitude line of laptops. Options: HP, Lenovo, Dell, Asus. And the answer is Dell. What is the two-word official name of the feature in a Zoom app in which smaller groups of people meet separately for a main meeting? Focus rooms, meeting rooms, breakout rooms, session groups. And the answer is breakout rooms. What term is used for the most basic level of core of an operating system responsible for resource allocation, file management, and security? In a different context, this word can also mean the seed and the hard husk of a cereal. Options: shell, kernel, root, node. And the answer is kernel. Steve Jobs is famously one of two men who co-founded Apple in 1976. The other co-founder was also named Steve. What was this other man's surname? Options: Wozniak, Gates, Ballmer, Ellison. Answer is Wozniak.
The fintech space in Nigeria has experienced remarkable growth over the past few years, with innovative solutions to address financial inclusion and enhance overall payment systems. However, alongside the industry's progress are some unwelcome challenges, especially in the form of fraud. On the program this week, I'll be talking to Samuel Ubido, chairman of Tech Innovate Group, who will be sharing insight on how best to tackle the menace. Now, Samuel, you would agree with me that Nigeria's fintech industry has experienced, tremendous growth recently. And of course, with this growth, we've also seen a rise in digital financial services, which has, somewhat changed how we access banking and payments. So tell me, what are some of the standout innovations you've seen in the space that may have contributed to this success?
Sure. Now, that's a very interesting question. We've seen the inflow of remittance coming into Nigeria, and we can see the impact which the fintech sector is bringing. And what I can say is the digital payment, that has been quite good in terms of my money and peer-to-peer lending. Also in terms of blockchain and smart contract, this is sort of new technology that have been implemented in the Nigerian and the fintech ecosystem in Africa. Lastly, what I would say is the buzzword currently in everyone's mouth is AI and machine learning. We're currently seeing AI and machine learning being used to detect fraud and to do improved credit scoring in general in the ecosystem. Those are some of the high-level innovations that I'm seeing so far.
Right, and this success, also due to this innovations that you've just mentioned, surely has had its impact on the broader Nigerian economy, especially in terms of financial inclusion, yes?
Oh, absolutely. I've literally just came back from Saudi Arabia, where I moderated a panel around financial inclusion. And what we've seen here is the new and digital services is touching and reaching a lot of the unbanked. This is like increasing the ecosystem. So what we've seen here is SME growth, because normally people are not able to access internet or banking using mobile money and the new technologies. They're able to access financing, bank accounts, and payments. Also, what we're also seeing is generally the financial inclusion theme is being funded across Africa, and Nigeria is leading the way with some of the solutions which we're implementing.
Well, Samuel, let's tilt this conversation a little bit, right? Because as the industry grows, so does the risk of fraud. So, would you say the expansion of the fintech industry has made fintech companies more vulnerable to cyber fraud?
Yes, absolutely. I guess the theme around cyber fraud and fraud is normally criminals go to where the money is at. And as we can see that fintech companies are raising a lot of money and the transaction volumes are increasing. So definitely there's been a rise and increase with cyber attack, which is affecting the ecosystem within Africa and specifically in Nigeria. So I can see a lot of banks and fintech companies being vulnerable, and definitely, I guess the conversation will be around what steps can they take to stay protected. But of course, with the inflow of money, fundraising, and transaction volume, definitely cyber threats and cyber attackers are keen in seeing how they can take advantage of any vulnerable systems out there.
Seeing as we both agree that they are quite vulnerable, based on the volume of transactions they're making, do you think that these companies have kept pace with the increasing sophistication of these fraudsters?
I would say overall, the ecosystem is quite secure and quite mature cybersecurely, but definitely there are new themes and technologies which can be implemented and best practices. So things like multi-factor authentication. Some banks and some fintech companies don't yet implement MFA. Now, without implementing MFA, this is quietly highly susceptible to third-party risk and middle channels attack. And things like AI-based fraud detection, I'm sure we all sort of see news around if a fintech company get hacked or fraud is being occurred. Definitely the use and implementation of AI and machine learning-based tools to detect any internal fraud or external fraud definitely are things that they need to definitely keep hold of. I'll say there's sort of two key points or things that they need to sort of keep hold of. But in general, my thoughts are, yes, the industry is going in the right direction, but definitely there needs to be a more increase in focus in cybersecurity and the importance, because with all these digital initiatives, without trust, you can't get a market share and you can't get the confidence of the customers and the clients. And when we speak about the broader financial inclusion topic, one of the main reasons is cash. People say, well, if I've got the cash at home, although it's susceptible to theft, but it's less susceptible to internet attacks and risk. But of course, with new technology, new system, if those are not secure, we could then make sort of financial inclusion a bit more vulnerable, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And before we go back to the issue of trust that you mentioned just now, surely we cannot talk about the threats without also talking about ways to tackle them. So what strategies have proven effective, in fighting these threats?
Definitely. I would say the first thing is training and awareness. In cybersecurity, you can't first protect what you don't know. And if there isn't a cybersecure culture within the company, then people tend to be a lot relaxed and not adhere to regulations. So we look at phishing, for example. Someone can go on LinkedIn or do some reconnaissance and find who the CIO is, CFO is, or someone in the company, send an email, and then see how they can sort of manipulate this system. But what I'm sort of seeing now is best practices are with cybersecurity, there's three elements: people, technology, and processes. The people elements are most of the time the last level of defense, because you need a human action to make an action, right? Training. Are your staff in your organization is trained? Do they understand the right standard? Do they know what a phishing email look like? Do they know how to report it? Once we've got the people trained, now we look at technologies. So things like multi-factor authentication, things like phishing detection, also things like AI and machine learning tools that can detect fraud or anonymized behavior. And then lastly, what process do we have in the organization? Do we have a cybersecurity policy? So in the case like Nigeria, we have NDPR. Are we compliant to NDPR? Are we complying with the CBN regulation for cybersecurity? And what collaboration are we doing across industries, but globally and within the continent, to ensure that we maintain it cyber secure? So essentially what I'm trying to say is one technology wouldn't fix all the issues. It's a combination of technology, as well as the people using the technology. And what brings this together is the governance framework and the regulation that ensures that we adhering to the highest level of cybersecurity posture.
Well, Samuel, before I take you up on, regulation and early detection, let's come back to trust, but, among the fintech companies themselves, because even though there's been hesitation, especially due to concerns over data privacy and, reputational risk, one proposed solution is data sharing between fintech companies. Now, do you think this is the key? And if so, how can companies balance data sharing with privacy concerns?
Sure, this is quite a very interesting question. So I was privileged earlier in my career to be part of a working group, and the concept was very simple. It got the head of information securities or data protection of the industry. It got the regulator of the industry, and also got the competent authority for cybersecurity. Now, this was quite fantastic because in there was a safe space where we could discuss challenges which we're seeing across industry, as well as speaking to the regulation in terms of how we need the regulation to be. And then, of course, some of these things need funding. Now, let's take it to a Nigerian context. What I propose is definitely sharing information is a must, especially in a closed group within industries, because what you're facing in your cybersecurity department is definitely most likely what your peer in the other organization is facing. So my sort of proposition would be around, well, if the CBN and central bank to maybe create a working group, because they lead all things policy for fintech. And then following from this, you can then have the agency responsible for cybersecurity, and then the leads of the fintechs and maybe banks come together once a month and discuss what are the cyber threats that we are seeing, number one. And number two, what can we do as a group and as an ecosystem to ensure that we have the right toolings and we have the right skill sets to do this. And if it's an element of funding, as a group, the ecosystem can then go to the central bank or can then go to a regulator to say, well, definitely critical infrastructure, if this goes down, it's going to be a huge risk to the nation and reputation. So how can we work together collectively using a single set of data to ensure that the ecosystem is secure? Because ultimately, it's although it's different companies, it is citizens' money, it is our money and it's our information. So definitely we as a country, organization and industries needs to ensure that together we stay secure.
Yeah, you're definitely right. Collaboration is, a recurring theme, when we talk about solutions to curb, cyber fraud. But also, there's no doubt that regulation plays a huge role in shaping how fintechs operate, especially when it comes to fraud prevention. So, do you think Nigeria's current regulatory framework is keeping up with the pace of innovation, or is there a need for more adaptive regulation?
Sure, this is quite a very interesting question. When it comes to regulation, some would argue innovation always is ahead of regulation. But what I see here is a unique opportunity whereby a working group could be created within private sector and public sector to ensure that the regulation is in line with the innovation. I think overall, Nigeria is doing a great job. The central bank, the Ministry of Information, also NITDA, and the presidency are doing quite amazing when it comes to cybersecurity. But what I'll also suggest in addition to this is a collaborative effort, because what we see here is people in the industry are driving the new technology, using the sandboxes, and sometimes people say regulation normally catch up. But now we could have an ecosystem whereby it could be a joint working group with the regulator and private sector to ensure that the regulation is one, aligns, and also relevant rather than a regulation that stops innovation, because ultimately we need to be innovating to stay competitive. In summary, yes, they are doing a great job, but of course more can be done because the pace at which cyber threats are increasing, especially due to AI, is quite a fast pace. So definitely it needs to be a lot more adaptive with releasing regulation, communication, skill set, training and funding.
Samuel, I totally agree with you. Collaboration between the fintechs, the regulators, and of course other stakeholders, because when they work together, they can create a safer ecosystem for digital financial systems. Well, it was indeed great to have you join us, on the program to share your knowledge with us on tech trends. Samuel Ubido, chairman of Tech Innovate Group. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Have an amazing day. Bye for now.
That's a wrap for this week's episode of Tech Trends. And if you missed any part of it, you can always catch up on the Channels TV YouTube accounts where we have all of our episodes. And as always, I encourage you to watch, share, and like your favorite editions. Also remember that if you're interested in keeping track of how tech-savvy innovators are crafting homegrown solutions using technology in the country, well, keep watching Tech Trends because we will continue to showcase them for you, from startups to big techs, and of course, inventful thinkers. Until next time, I'm Olayemi Odunuga. Bye for now.